welcome to Lead Live, reminding you of your personal genius and how you think in order to actualize what you desire.
Welcome to Lead Live. It is my honor to be here with all of you to share a very important topic. You know, when I said that, it makes me think about all the topics that we've discussed over the last year. Everyone has been important, and they're intentionally established in order to encourage us to think, to reflect deeply, to ask ourselves, how are we in relationship to what we'd like to experience as individuals, as families, as businesses, as leaders in those families, in those businesses, in the community. And so today is no less important, and one could argue absolutely essential. The topic is demystifying investing as a mid career professional. We believe that all of us, with the right kind of information and mindset, predisposition that we create or we were born with, that we learn or that we were instilled to experience, that we could be financially free. Yes, we firmly believe that, my guest and I. Not only the guests today, but many of the previous guests that we've had on this broadcast and we will have in the future. And so we don't believe in making statements and leaving it that. We're going to get into some of the nuts and bolts of why we say what we say, why we believe, and why we live and allow to manifest what we believe. So we believe that first, understanding your goals, two, the funds you require to achieve those goals, and then understanding what products or services and/or services are available to enable you to actually grow, protect, and assure that you can leverage, access those funds that you've grown, and be able to build and leave a legacy for your family, for your community, for the organizations that you care about, whether it's your businesses or whether it is a nonprofit organization. So, and at the center of a lot of what we will talk about, not only today, but in subsequent broadcasts, is about tax advantage strategies, tax free strategies. Yes, we firmly believe in being part of this important country of the United States, those who are presenting and guests of the show who are from here, and those who are guests in other countries, without a doubt, believe in investing in their respective countries. So paying taxes is part of that. And we honor that. We encourage that. We do that. Yet we also believe in leveraging what we've worked for in a way where we don't give away all of our money to anyone. We leverage it so that it can grow, and we protect it so we can access it tax free. So we believe in paying taxes on the front end, ideally, but we also believe in diversified portfolios that may mean, in some instances, paying taxes later. But we firmly believe any growth of our money should be tax advantage. So, with that, I'd like to introduce you to a couple of colleagues who are members of my team, and I am so honored to be able to say that. They are sisters, and they're remarkable sisters. And they're more than sisters. They're individuals who care to make a profound difference, and I am certain that they were extremely well tasked as children, and thanks to their parents, and inspired to be their great selves by their parents. So, with that, I'd like to say thank you to their mom and dad for choosing to make a positive difference in the lives of these two remarkable professionals. Ethny Stewart is a higher ed professional, academic coach, and researcher. She works within the field of higher education and specifically in the area of student services, which is a broad area for those of us who have worked in higher education and still work in higher education. Currently, she directs a federal retention program at one of California's community colleges. She, like her sister, have worked in higher education for a number of years and for universities as well as now community college. And her focus is on academic, career, professional development, and financial literacy. Committed to research and teaching and learning across discipline settings, uh, she will continue to do so within higher education. And who knows, in the financial services sector, we may do some research there too. Azure Stewart, Azure Azure, I got to pronounce that beautiful name correctly, is an experienced doctoral researcher. She's worked across a variety of educational settings, as I indicated before, both public and private, in the community college system, in the California State University system, in the University of California system, at private system in California, as well as outside of California. She has extended history working in the library and industry settings. She's skilled in educational consulting, technology, research, instruction and curriculum design, technical writing, library instruction, information literacy, mentoring, and adult and STEMS education. For those of you who don't know what STEMS is, it's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Now, I purposely uh, shared that wonderful summary background, the two of them. When I said they joined me, we're working together collaboratively as financial educators. And I'm going to ask them to come into the studio so we get a chance to speak with them and see them directly. Look at these two remarkable, beautiful professionals. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us.
And thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too. And for those of you in other countries, like the Philippines or elsewhere, good morning to you. And I want to ask you both to share something with all of us that we would otherwise not know about you. I love to ask this question because we tend to learn the essence of who you are when you share what's not in social media, for example. So, Azure.
I'll go first. I was trying to figure out which sibling's going first. Probably what I don't have listed in social media. I mean, I'm an avid cook. And I do exercise a lot and I like to be out in nature. So those are probably some of my hobbies and things that I like to do outside of my professional work.
Excellent. Ethny?
And similar. So I'm an Aggie at heart. Love agriculture, love nature. Fell in love with food and farming and kind of that whole process from farm to table. So enjoy just being outdoors and having my hands in the dirt. But also like more of the, I guess you would consider it more of the tradition of kind of learning from my grandmother, canning and making jams and ways to preserve food. So really enjoy kind of like that farm to table experience.
I love it. I love it. Well, that's another discussion. Imagine that. I didn't know that about you. And perfect compliment. I had a sense of your what you might say as your because you are. I understand you're an expert in yoga instruction that I'm so looking forward to you inviting me to be part of. And it will surprise one of my nieces who is extraordinarily good shape, who's been helping individuals get into a healthier physical state. And she loves yoga as well. So it's an honor to have both of you and to know that in the spirit of just being human, that you allow yourself, your diverse aspects of yourself to really be illuminated. We have a tendency of, or I'll blame it on me. I'll be very personal. When I was most of my 40-year career in higher education was very tunnel vision. Focus, focus, focus. It was about creating, 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 adding value, adding value, adding value. etc., and doing it 24/7, 7 days a week. And even when I slept, I didn't think I ever dreamed work, with one exception. And yet I must have, because when I woke up, I had answers to questions that I had before I went to bed. And so I was ready to go back and get into the office before 5, and typically leaving there or stopping work 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, which meant on average I slept 3 to 4 hours a day. But
Wow.
I enjoyed it. It was
Yeah.
wonderful. What I missed was the complexity of self,
Mhm.
and the aspect of me that actually also loves to cultivate the soil. And
Mm.
so much healing occurs when I do that, let alone watching nature in its pure perfection, if you will. And so, anyway, I can go on and on about that, and I can tell my people are here. We're already 12 minutes in, and I'm just jibber jabbing. Call me back in.
It's about lunch. It's lunchtime. That it all
Yes.
aligns.
Well, I want
Food.
to let you know that I appreciate what you do, because I know that your reason for being in higher education, on the surface, yes, it's about learning. It's about facilitating learning. It's about enhancing the quality of lives. But really, it's about growth. And why for you, Ethny? Why higher education?
I could also say it's also kind of a familial pattern. Both of our parents were in higher education, so we kind of grew up in that environment and didn't know anything different but going to the university and being on campus, during summers and between, experiencing, just the different, students that would come over to my parents' house after hours when they had, events. Specifically, they had quite a few events geared around African Americans and kind of specific majors, just because there was such a small population of students in that area. And so both of them, as much as they tried to lead us the opposite direction away from student services, somehow we both ended up in student services. So I guess it's the, wanting to, like you said, to assist and help people, to, guide them upon their path. Enjoy supporting students and seeing them succeed. And I guess pushing forward, doing something maybe they didn't think they were capable of doing.
Interesting. And so, Azure, do you have a different perspective, or is it complementary, or you have more to add?
I mean, it's complementary to just being exposed, and really, I would say, like, the cultivation of community has always been kind of like a thing with our parents and their students and supporting them. But I think more importantly, I think education gives you kind of the power of choice. Or if you don't finish a degree objective, like, you can see what your options and power of what those choices are. You don't necessarily have to get a 4-year degree if you don't want to, but having that experience gives you opportunity to see what's greater out there. And I see kind of as my role is to kind of facilitate and to at least inform folks, like, these are the options, these are the things that are available to you. You have the power of choice of what you want to do, and to at least be informed and making informed decisions of what you're making. So I think that's a big part of where I kind of see myself.
Well, it's interesting, and not by coincidence that you've shared the power of choice, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what this discussion is about today. It's helping people understand that one of our um, oh, gifts as humans is the ability to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And in many places on the planet, we can choose, not
Mm-hmm.
all places, but
Right.
where we can choose, and
Mm-hmm.
at whatever level we can choose, even across the planet, in all areas of the planet, we encourage people to exercise choice. And
Mm-hmm.
so, when you let's start with your experiences. What do you wish you had known about financial matters at early in your career and now as mid-career professionals?
Mm. I could start. I think for me, having really an understanding of what the different kinds, our parents were pretty transparent about some of the monies and different systems and things that they were using and instruments. But I think now there's a little bit more available, but I think I wish I had invested probably a little bit earlier. I definitely went to grad school and took out loans and stuff. Sometimes I wish that the stuff that I hadn't used, like I had been able to invest it and be able to create some sort of extra funding. And so those are some of the things that I really like wished I had been kind of a little bit more savvier with. But overall, I wanted to add also, we may not have power to choose, but my goal is to put people in positions so that they can choose. And I think that's also another layer to it as well.
Excellent. Excellent.
I would build upon that as well. I think coming in, especially, in traditional, I guess, institutional settings, when you come in to sign your paperwork for HR, et cetera, a lot of times you're not really, you're there to sign paperwork. They can't really answer questions for you. So unless you have some sort of outside financial advising or have, individuals that can guide you, peers, other financial supports, it's hard to know what your options are. I think as much as they allow individuals to take out loans, there isn't really that much training on what that means and how to use them responsibly. So I wish I just maybe had been a little bit more informed of building that financial wealth earlier. And I guess just setting myself up to be a little bit more strategic and knowledgeable about the options available.
And so am I to assume that that's part of the reason why you joined us as financial educators in this financial services sector?
Most definitely.
Absolutely. And I think also just being able, you see your students come from education to get jobs, and it's just kind of a natural pipeline to kind of help them think about things along the way.
And I would say in the case of mine, I actually work for a federal TRIO program. And so that's part of our charge is we're supposed to make students knowledgeable about financial literacy. Most of our students are first generation, low income, come from backgrounds where they maybe don't have that resource or knowledge about how to traverse financial systems. So this is not only assisting me in kind of my own path, but also assisting them because I'll be able to provide, like Azure said, the ability for them to choose and be knowledgeable about those options available.
So you mentioned something earlier, Ethny. You said that you were, when you, in your new professional role, had to sign paperwork within human resources or the HR department. And some companies call it the people department. They have different titles, but it's all about the staff, the employees of the organization. And you were signing some documents, and were you told you had options? Or were you asked any questions about what your preferences were in terms of any savings that you might have? What did you experience?
I think it's been kind of all over the place. I think it depends on the size of well, in my case, it's mainly been institutions. So it's been the size of the campus. But in most parts, I would say HR folks in general usually don't have that financial background. They're there to basically onboard you, make sure that you're going to get your paycheck and make sure your taxes are reduced and you have your benefits coming out of your check. But beyond that, it's basically handing over a set of paper and saying you can choose, you can read through and figure out what you would like. So really not having specific information and about what those options are and what they could be kind of has left me a little bit behind on making that forward progress. And like Azure mentioned, we did have parents that came from more of a traditional background. And so in terms of you stay with the same institution all your complete lifespan. So moving around has made that even an interesting process, because then you're trying to figure out your piecemealing retirements. How does that kind of play in to your long-term goals?
Yeah.
And so, as you said, you wish you had started earlier. Why?
Mhm.
What is it that you know now that you didn't know then, and that would cause you to have this wish?
Yeah, I think so. I was really strategic. I actually only started to take student loans during I would say my master's and my PhD program, which in a lot of cases for most students is very rare. Usually you take a lot in your undergrad, but I think there could have been ways that I could have maximized using some of the loans because they are lower interest rate, and I could have use that funding and kind of compound it so that I could pay off my student loan. So then that way you're not like trying to balance paying rent, your insurance, and your housing and all these things together. And then
Okay,
at the same
you're
time,
going someplace. I think some people are going to be confused. What do you mean compounding? What do you mean? What options are you thinking about that are in your head, and you're saying, "I wish I could have done this."
I'm talking about IULs.
Uh,
So yes,
IUL is Index
it's
Universal
universal
Life.
life.
Okay, so
Yeah.
go ahead. We're gonna come circle back to that in a moment.
Yeah, because I've had classmates who would take out extra loan and they were like, "Oh, I put in a CD," and you're accruing some interest, but it's not, it's not going to help you maximize if you're trying to pay back.
And for
Uh,
those who don't know, CDs are certificates of deposits you can get
mhm,
from banks, and they fall into the category of tax now category, which
mhm,
means that you pay tax on any money earned. You put that money in there, and it grows, and the
mhm,
growth is pretty nominal, right? If
mhm.
we're lucky, it's 1%. It may be slightly more than that, but that's one. Go ahead.
Yeah. So those things, I think, in terms of that being strategic, would have been helpful, at least knowing that now that I'm on the other side and have finished. But
Well,
yeah.
yeah. And let's stay with that for a moment, because I want people to know that there are these three different categories when we think about financial the growth of our money. There are three different categories when we think of the protection of our money, and there are
Mhm,
three categories we think of when it call it, as it relates to taxes
mhm,
or distribution of our money. So there's tax now, there's tax later, and there's tax advantaged. Now,
mhm,
tax advantage, let's be clear, that's tax free.
mhm,
That's and so the, diversified portfolios that people typically have uh, fall into definitely having the tax advantage. But some people only have tax now and tax later.
mhm,
And we want to show you a couple of illustrations that the three of us reviewed and seriously thought what would be most helpful to share with the viewing audience. It's not the complete story, but we
mhm,
want to bring home the power of what Azure just indicated. Wishing that she had had the information she has now when she was beginning to plan and implement that initial plan. And what I've learned about these two professionals is that they don't wait until they wake up 20 years from now and decide maybe we should plan. They're thinking ahead.
mhm, mhm,
So we want you to do what we're doing, but we want you to do it in an even more remarkable way, because we want you to do it earlier so that you benefit from starting now, whether you're 18 years old, you're 20 years old, you're 25, you're 30, you're 40, really wherever you're at age wise. Start now if you're not financially literate.
mhm.
Leverage leverage other people, leverage people in the know, not just anyone. Okay, so let's give a couple of examples. How does that sound, Azure?
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. So one thing, first of all, we want to just highlight. Here's some of the common assumptions, right? And I maybe we can start here and then jump to the 401k and then jump back to show you an illustration. How does that sound? Is that okay?
That sounds great.
Okay. Why don't one of you point out one that you really is a hot button for you?
I Go ahead. I think, also there's coming to terms that a lot of folks think their experience will be their parents in terms of investing. mainly like with Social Security and some of those other benefits still being available once we get that age. So I think those are some assumptions that we're kind of having to kind of lean into.
I would build on, I think Azure probably could speak a little bit more, but talking with colleagues, a lot of individuals that we know only stay at their institution or their area of employment because they're waiting out being vested. And so they, equate that getting that vestment and being vested in that institution or organization means that they're secure, and that means that they're going to get their pension at the end of the day. And so in some instances that kind of hinders their ability to then move forward and make, additional, decisions and or planning on their part to then set themselves up. So I think just not thinking broadly and outside of just your institution being the only group or organization that has the answers to your financial security has been kind of the common misconceptions.
Well, here's one. When we were talking, you two made it very clear you've heard of 401ks. Most people you know have heard of 401ks. And most people you've spoken with, as colleagues and as friends, people you care about who are mid-career professionals, are saying, all I need is my 401k for security. All I need is my 401k. Hopefully I will be vested in a pension plan. Hopefully, hopefully, hopefully. Well, one thing that most people don't know, especially as you were sharing with them, is that with 401ks, folks, it's a great option if your employer is contributing. It's a great option if you don't know of any other options, maybe, emphasis added. We don't want to negate 401ks or 403bs or mutual funds or IRAs. They have their role. And so if you believe they will serve you, any one or all of those, then go for it. But we want you to understand what the consequences are. There are fees, but also if you're not 59 and a half and you want to withdraw your money, you're going to experience a penalty. Currently, it's at 10%. Currently, the approximate federal tax on that, your money, is 30%. If you're in a state where you're taxed, like a California, it's 10%. So if you have 100,000 in there, let's just take that low number for a lot of people, then what do you have? When you take out those fees and taxes, you have half of that, 50,000. Or you can just scale it up and say you have a million. Well, what you really have is 500,000. But let's say you decide to take it out when you're the appropriate age to take it out. You're not earlier, you're not younger than 59 and a half. And so, assuming that is years in the future, knowing what's happening with regards to the federal deficit, the inflation, et cetera, the likelihood of taxes going up is greater now than most people anticipate. But let's just say it only goes up a small amount, but still significantly, to 35% at the federal level, 15% at the state. Still, you're looking at a minimum of 45% of that money automatically going towards taxes. You say, no problem, still I have some money there. I prefer to use 401k. Well, we're going to show you an illustration of what will occur if you take advantage of what Azure indicated, and that is the Index Universal Life. The third category related to this 401k that we tend not to mention, but if you don't take your money out on time, the IRS will penalize you. So it used to be 70 and a half. Now it's 72, I believe, with the changes that occurred due to COVID-19. So if you don't take your money out before 72 because you say, I really don't need it, I want it to grow more, well, then you will experience a federal excise tax of 50%. Yes, that's real, folks. So let's jump to something else for people, because this is where the rubber meets the road. Now, this is just an illustration using accurate details of what occurred between 1998 and 2020. And if you can't see all the details because it's so fine and your screen may not allow you to see it, just look at the bottom number. Okay. There are two individuals. one chose either a mutual fund, a 401k, a 403b, or an IRA. They chose and they leveraged S&P 500, that index. And you can see the interest went up, or the index or the stock market went up, the index went up, and you see the results. Likewise, you see it for what is in the green column, the index universal life. Index universal life, otherwise known as IUL, has a lot of other cute names, but basically are index universal life insurance policies. These are policies that corporations leverage. These are policies that banks leverage. Corporations, we call them COLI, corporate owned life insurance. Banks leverage these insurance instruments and others, and they call them BOLIs, bank owned life insurance. The wealthy, the corporate leaders leverage these because of the growth potential and the actual historical growth results. So you see here both set of individuals, one with one of those to the left, mutual fund, 401k, 403b, or IRA, 250,000 invested, and to the right, 250,000 invested or not invested, but as a premium placed in their IUL. And at the end of the day, they both have growth in money. That's the good news. The bad news is that if you look to the left, you see the growth has basically been eroded because of the variation or the movement in the stock market where it plummeted. And last year was a great example, not in good terms, but in um, painful terms for many people. So we want you to see the significant difference in using different instruments. We're not saying don't go to 401ks. We're not saying don't go to IRAs. We're saying be aware of your options and leverage the one that works for you in relationship to what. That's what we want to come back to. So when we talk about financial education, it's not just to know, although that's powerful in and of itself. It's to get someplace, right? You have some goals, right? Ethny and Azure, you want to achieve something. We all do. So the question is, what do we want to achieve as individuals, and how do we monetize that? If we want to travel, how much will that cost? If we want to buy a house, how much will that cost? If we want to build a family, what's the likely cost of that? If we want, you fill in the blank, and then you walk backwards and say, how much money do I need by what date certain, and what instruments are going to get us there?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the other thing we wanted to show you, and we may have time to do that. Well, let's just show one. Uh, Index universal life. And this may be hard to see. This is literally, for emphasis added, an illustration only. And this is based upon a female being 35 years old. Okay. So one could be a male, we do an illustration. One could be, oh goodness, what are the right language to use?
Non-binary.
Non-binary. Okay. There I go again with your name. I'll get it straight. One could be in any one of those categories, and we would do appropriate illustration based upon where they want to go, and then we would show them based upon a particular goal that you have, what that monthly premium would look like. And here's an example at a 7.1% growth rate. And we always use a low growth rate. We don't show large growth rates because we want people to understand, yes, there's room for growth, significant room for growth, but we don't want to over estimate. And so using a global index at 7.1%, monthly premium of 500, this 35-year-old female would witness by the age of 70 a savings, cash accumulating of nearly 500,000, and with a death benefit that she can leverage for long-term care and other kinds of living needs, assuming she qualifies, and everyone has to qualify for these. She'd have set aside 1.1 million if she needs to use it. Otherwise, if she doesn't and she transitions, let's say, God forbid, too early, but she transitions at 70, that 1.1 plus goes to her family as a death benefit, in addition to the cash that accumulated. And if she never used her 500,000, all of that goes to help address the beneficiaries, gives it goes to the beneficiaries, whether it's individuals, the families, or any organization that 35-year-old chose to assign as beneficiaries. So we just want you to get a taste of this. We're not going into a level of discrete details right now, but we want you to understand what that means. Now, when you said vested earlier, I think it was you, Ethnic. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it could have been either one of you because we all talked about it. Um, what do we mean by that in terms of retirement?
I think it depends on the organization and or company you're working for. I know I was at CSU and PERS, which is one of the premier options for pension, which most individuals would like. It's 5 years, right, to get vested. So you're essentially in the system at that point and can then continue to build your essentially pension to draw on once you retire. And so I think Azure had some examples of some colleagues that, that's been kind of their hinge point of staying with the institutional organization because that they feel once they're locked in, they have to stay there and that's their only option. Whereas what you were just kind of discussing, Dr. Webb, there's so many other options that you can look outside to still build that security without being tied necessarily to the institution specific.
Powerful, powerful. And when you've spoken with some of these colleagues, uh, have they even suggested that they have a clue about these different options that include index universal life or fixed index annuities, or we can go on? Azure.
I think most of them, what you see is when you go into HR, it's 401ks, and then it's IRAs, and then that's pretty much it. We grew up knowing about tax shelters and those kinds of that. And I've had colleagues who are like, what is that? So not really having the knowledge. I didn't know IULs existed. And then I started reading about other financial investors who say like, that's what they use is IULs. And like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. How they've been able to build their wealth from their funds and to support things that they're doing.
And the key thing for people to remember is that the IUL is an insurance policy. And so it really is important for people to remember that, that it's that first and foremost. And the benefit that the IRS provides to all of us, not just corporations and banks and wealthy and the corporate so-called leaders who are in formal leadership roles, it provides to us as well the opportunity to grow our money, to protect our money, and to leave a legacy that allows us to help build intergenerational wealth. What separates the Rockefellers from the Vanderbilts? We love to use that example. The Rockefellers we still hear about, and their money is just growing and growing because they're using these instruments. The Vanderbilts, they, as one of the books that we have about the entitlement, they were entitled. So everyone wanted their share, their piece. They weren't sufficiently, it didn't matter how bright they were, intelligent they weren't sufficiently educated to know that as they were pulling the pieces apart, unless they literally invested in instruments like we're referring to and we're aware of, then they would ultimately lose that so-called generational wealth. And that's what happened with the Vanderbilts. Rockefellers are still ultra wealthy, and the wealth just compounds. And I heard you use the word earlier, Azure, compounding. And most people don't even they don't the notion of compounding. They may have heard it, but they've not seen the power of it. Imagine, folks. Have anyone talked about the rule of 72? Yes.
I've heard of it, but I'm not really like gone into depth about it.
Well, we're not going to go into depth right now, but I just want people to realize that the rule of 72, the basic mathematical formula basically says you take the interest, the growth on your money, and you divide it into 72, and that's how long it will take your money to double.
Mm.
And those who are really leveraging their money, having it work for them rather than work for 20, 40, 50, 60 years, maybe even longer,
Yeah.
and try to have work for the money, have your money work for you. All of a sudden, if you've got a 12% annual return, 12 divided into 72 is what? 6 years.
Right.
Wow.
And so your money, if you have 10,000, is going to grow to 20,000 in 6 years.
Right.
But if you're only getting a 1% return from your bank, it's going to take how many years? 72 years
Yeah.
for it to double. And
Yeah.
so that's why a lot of us, not because we don't have the capacity or we're not smart, we just don't know.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's the brilliance of the two of you, is you've decided you're going to leverage your expertise to learn areas that you would otherwise not know. Not only that, you're sharing it with other people.
Mhm.
So let's go into some other pieces. I think we had a lot that we wanted to cover, but I think I'm talking too much. So
But it's
let's
all
go
great information.
let's go into some of the do's and don'ts that you both shared. So you want to
Mhm.
take it away and talk about the don'ts and why briefly?
Yeah, I could start with some of the do's. I think the biggest thing is learning what your options are, and as you mentioned, like how to leverage them, and leverage the expertise and knowing. So I always say, once you know what your options are, like you're able to make better decisions and choice, and how to kind of guide yourself financially. And that also kind of leans into diversifying and expanding your options, and just talking with peers and seeing like how are they investing their money, is a really important thing to ask, because they may know things that you don't know about, or that they may assume that you know, and may have already been invested in different kinds of instruments. And so I think it's really important as a community that we have those dialogues. And then, just the equity of it, with the money, and being able to kind of generate passive income. So thinking of ways that you can do that. I do yoga as my kind of other extracurricular. So try and put money aside that I get from that to put it in other spaces. I've heard of other folks leveraging parking spaces if they don't have a car, to rent it to add another income, or be working. And if you're really good at social media, being hired out to do that, and using whatever extra income towards that to kind of invest. And just overall, just making sure like your money works for you, and making out what the best decision is going to help you be able to build that from what you're earning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
And in
don'ts.
Yes, yes. I think the biggest is making assumptions, like Azure was just mentioning or sharing, assuming that you know all the answers or have all the answers. Obviously, usually we only know what we know. And so a lot of that also is attached to how you were raised and what was accessible. So definitely extending outside of sometimes your bubble to ask what else is going on. And then also, following others blindly. So, asking the questions, answering and setting yourself up so you can be successful. So, definitely weighing all the options available. Aj and I had this discussion, and I think it's been an ongoing discussion, assuming that Social Security will be there for us once we retire. We know that, there's always been discussion, will it be around? So I think setting yourself up, knowing that that might not be an option. Assuming options available for retirement at your institution are the only. So this kind of goes back to the ongoing discussion of, when you visit your HR to sign your paperwork at whatever institution or organization or professional job you enter, assuming that that's the only options available to you. So don't just assume what they give you is your only options. Definitely working outside the confines of what is provided, and knowing that you have other ways to secure security. And then we were having this discussion as a group about the credit cards and utilizing credit cards in an effective manner. So this is just more kind of gearing towards, don't use it to purchase depreciating value items. So, how you use your credit and your savings and your funds in a way that maximizes what you need out of them.
Yes. Yes. And as a complement to that, all debt is not bad debt, but you want to stay away from bad debt. And
Right.
so we'll leave it at that. We talk about debt and what's good debt versus bad debt. Another discussion, another session. It's really critical that people be mindful about every dollar they have
Mm.
until it's a habit.
Mm.
Initially, it's challenging because you just, oh, I've got $10, or I've got $100, or I've got $1,000. I'll just, and before you know it, that what was $5,000 in a little savings account for just miscellaneous is gone,
Mm.
and you have not, you can't account for it. But if you've accounted for it and you're like, oh my goodness, I could have saved 2,500. I just bought it with junk, and literally next year I'm not going to need it, and some of it I can't use it anymore.
Mm.
So just be mindful. We have power. We are referenced as a country as one of the wealthiest countries on the planet. And yes, we see poor folks all around. We see homeless folks, unfortunately, growing in numbers. Even people living in their cars, and finding ways to make themselves presentable so that they go to work, and most people don't know they're living in their cars. But if we just, when we make some shifts, even if they're minor, all of a sudden we have assets. And for those of us who don't have assets, real assets currently, we can build those by leveraging others who do. That's
Mm.
again a whole nother conversation. So just because someone is homeless, take it from someone who knows, does not mean you will always be homeless. It's a mindset, can shift. And our responsibility or our decision is to help people understand how to make that shift. Okay. Uh, then there's something that you started us off with, uh, and that is the power to choose, Azure,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's really important to be able to establish your goals. What are your long-term and short-term goals of where you want to be? Where you want to retire, because obviously right now Social Security, like it's 62. But if there's other things that you want to do before then, like what is that forecasting going to look like? Or if you want to invest or do something else, you want to think about what is that picture going to be? And then you want to think about what kinds of funds you're going to need to determine those goals, and what kinds of products that will help you kind of grow and protect those assets, and to take advantage of tax-free access with your money. And then, as you said, bonus, building intergenerational wealth. Uh, I was also going to add with the IULs, like a lot of medical bills and things that come up. Folks sometimes, don't have the extra income to cover it. So like things like the IULs could kind of cover and support things that certain procedures don't necessarily cover. So setting yourself up to kind of be protected for that and to protect your other assets.
Yeah, powerful,
Mhm.
powerful. I want us to just set with that and just go back so that people can take a screenshot from the do's and don'ts, um, and just remind people that we're actively choosing even when we don't know we're choosing. We're choosing what we think about, we're choosing what we allow to take up our thoughts through media, whether it's television, radio, or just in the environment. We're choosing how we react to it rather than respond. And preferably, we're responding and not just reacting. We're choosing how we feel about what we're experiencing. And so we just want you to remember that. Now, here's something that we wanted to share. And it looks like you wanted to say something, Ethny, earlier.
Oh, I think the only thing we had mentioned, good debt and bad debt, and taking out student loans obviously is a debt, but I always associate it with a good debt because you're trying to make forward progress and build yourself into a position. But also just knowing, which I always reiterate to students, the options even within, student loans and how to kind of maneuver. So for instance, I'm utilizing the public service loan forgiveness option. So by working in a nonprofit, state, or government entity, having that opportunity to maybe have some of those loans forgiven as part of my work as well.
Powerful. And then it makes me think about the gentleman that we had on a few weeks ago, Joel, who literally put himself through school by side gigs that allowed him to purchase a house. Then it was much more affordable, but you could even say to him then it was too high. It was $100,000 house. He couldn't afford it. But what did he do? He brought in fellow classmates who um, uh, uh, rented rooms in his home that took care of the mortgage. And when he graduated, he had zero debt. So, folks, there's just one path, there's multiple paths. And the question is, where do you want to be at the end of the day? And what path will get you there most efficiently? And that's what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Now, here's what we all get to do. Uh, when I say we all, there's a large team of us. And thanks to a couple of organizations that we're associated with, one is the World Financial Organization, and the other is, or I should say, World Financial Group, and the other is Pinnacle Elite. And as part of all of that, working more broadly with the leadership of Aegon Corporation, one of the largest corporations on the planet, and organizations that are A plus rated, like those you see on the right side, Transamerica being central, all these others as well, including an organization that's been around for 200 years, Athene Annuity that insured the Titanic. These are the kinds of organizations we're working with. And I started off with the WFG and Pinnacle Elite, because WFG literally provides the administrative marketing arm of a lot of what we do and ensures that in this financial services industry, which is the largest industry in the country, the most regulated industry in the country, and the most remarkably complementary to professionals in the country, we're leveraging Pinnacle Elite because of the leadership of that organization, namely Eric Olson and his remarkable wife, Sandra Olson. They allow us to not only learn, but leverage these different instruments for you. For those of you who are looking to, when you learn about the different options, roll over into one of those options from what you have. If you don't have life insurance right now to cover it as a responsible parent or partners, you get the insurance to ensure your family is in order should, God forbid, anything happen to you prematurely, or anytime at some point in life we are certain to transition out of this life. Hopefully later when we've achieved everything. But life insurance is critical. And what both of our guests have talked about, long-term care, is instrumental to ensuring our overall well-being. So when we think about life insurance, the old version was really basically death insurance. It was for our beneficiaries. The new version, the newest version, Index Universal Life, is in fact life insurance. It does what we've talked about before. It has all of this protection that enables us to help our families, help our children go to college, uh, and address any kind of medical issues we have, etc. And then it has this growth potential, this remarkable savings aspect, protection and savings. And as someone who articulates it better than I, one of our colleagues, Olive, she says, she references what we call the financial pocket knife. And folks, we want you to read as much as possible because what we're sharing with you is not only is it in books, it's also um, among the professionals that are part of our team who understand the power of these options. Not everyone knows these options, but they should know in order to leverage. So, what we do is what you see to the left and more. So, just recognize the possibilities. So, when I share this with you um, or with the viewing audience, what say you? What comes to mind, Ethny and Azure?
I think just the diversity of options available, right? What you usually see on your paperwork or provided is so much more diverse and available, and to take advantage of, should you, depending on your situation and your need. So like you're saying, just making sure that you're looking broadly at what you have available to you.
Yes. I want to honor some of the folks who've been viewing us. Becca, this is awesome. Tomoko, she says hello to us. Embarrassingly, I say, she says, brilliant woman. Looking forward to hearing our stories. Good question. Erica shares. Hawa, thank you so much for being with us. And she says she loves the guest always. And Joanna, thank you so much to us for what we're doing. And we're all about inspiring. So thanks for honoring that and encouraging her to reflect on and shift her relationship to money, which is deeply based in fear and anxiety. Wow. And empower myself through financial knowledge. No more living from a place of scarcity. Exclamation mark. You are so on it. Speak to that, you two, because that's so powerful. Fear, place of scarcity.
Yeah, as one of my friends says, as money flows, money goes. So I think there's a lot of opportunities definitely online right now to be able to pick up, other jobs and other places that you can accrue money and to kind of support, but also to be able to invest that and to help yourself invest it. So yeah, there's lots of options.
Mm-hmm. And I think in general, hopefully, I think money and the discussions about money always bring up anxiety for a lot of folks, especially if you feel like you're not fully informed. So I think just having, these discussions about what, all of us have encountered and continue to encounter definitely helps to hopefully ease people's minds, because you're not the only ones that also feel have the same anxiety and same, sometimes same experiences regarding money. And, those hopefully, so kind of bringing that back, just hopefully this kind of brings up and kind of reinforces that you're not alone in that discussion, and there are options.
Yeah. And fear is very curious to me. And some people are, how can I put it? Um, they're catapulted to action because of fear, and some people are just drained and depressed as a result.
Mm.
And I say that whether fear is the classic false expectations appearing real, or they are real evidence of something that you've experienced, I say just honor that you are in that fear state and say, thank you very much for giving me that acknowledgement, put it to the side,
Mm.
and then decide what works for you. If you don't know what it is, ask yourself what you would love to experience, and then have that work for you, and then build the life around what you'd love to experience. And as both of these remarkable women would say, and I know Ethny basically conveyed it, be less concerned about staying at a place because you're going to be guaranteed a life income. There are
Mhm.
no guarantees except for the ones you create. Let's be clear.
Mm.
There are no guarantees except for the ones you create. Can't emphasize that enough. Ask yourself, what do I need to know in order to get there? And what can I leverage in order to get there? And here's one of the books that we encourage people to take a look at: Money,
Mm.
Wealth, and Life Insurance. You will be amazed what's in books. Whether it's The Power of Zero, I mentioned earlier, The Financial Pocket Knife, or this one, how the wealthy use life insurance as a tax-free personal bank to supercharge their savings. And folks, you can get this online for free. I think it's in PDF form. Okay. Uh, and definitely contact us if you're interested in learning more. But the key thing we want you to know is that you get to choose. You get to choose. I'm going to share something with you. This is what we do. We are financial educators. And that's why I love the fact that we started off with both of their brief bios indicating, and it's the tip of the iceberg, doesn't even share the remarkable accomplishments they've had. They're very humble women. Um, what it does is let you know that we're all about the business of real learning, understanding, and not just for the sake of learning, which is powerful in and of itself, but to be able to apply it in a way that adds value to your life now. That's why we're in this business. We're going to affect the lives of at least 1 million people in 5 years, and you're among those folks. We want you to shift in a way that gets you closer to where you want to be. You decide that. We don't. We just provide you with the tools. We're not just analysts, we're educators. We're not planners. We want you to plan. We want to give you the tools you need to facilitate your greatness. And here are the areas that we focus in on. And any of you interested, contact us. We'll give you more details, but this is what we're about. And so when people say, well, okay, you're about financial health, protection, and wealth building, right? And you provide tools, products, and services. Yes. And this is how we do it, right? And I don't know if I can show this while having our screens up. Jet's not well, folks. For those of you who know Jet, unfortunately, he's not here because he knows how to work this gadget much better than I. So here's what we're about. You read this, we're about helping, emphasis on helping you achieve your goals. And how do we work? We assess where you're at, and then we expose you through illustrations to some of the top A plus and A rated companies so that you can see how you can get to your goals financially. And then what do we do? What are the benefits? The benefits are for you to protect you, your family, your businesses, help you grow that money. So the money's working for you, not you having to work so hard for your money. And then to be able to access your funds, your money, your cash, tax free, and then build a legacy. Wow, that's it. Simple. And then what does it cost you? $0. What we do, we get paid handsomely by our firms. We literally provide you services at zero cost. I know that's unheard of. We're not in the business of complementing other organizations where you pay for the time of that analyst, that planner, et cetera. That's not our role. That's for other people to do. What we do is provide free services for you because we want you to get to where you want to be sooner. You take advantage of one of our services, then you work directly with the product provider. And 100% of whatever you choose to leverage is for you, and it goes directly into that product and or service from the product provider. So that's what we're about. And we just want you to understand that whether it is with us or whether it is with some other individual or organization, make certain you're clear about where you want to go and that you have some insight as to how to get there, leveraging financial educators, especially. Because when we're not there, you need to have sufficient knowledge to be able to make decisions that work for you. I want to tell this other story, but I want to ask you first, you two first, if you have any stories of individuals who, thank you, Becca. She says she loves that. If you have individuals who, when you gave them some of your information, only the tip of the iceberg, did they say, wow, this is new? Did they say, it's too good to be true? Actually, I already know some of them did. Okay. Tell the audience some of the things that they said.
I mean, I'll even say myself, I'm like, IULs and I get, tax free. I'm like, that's too good to be true. I'm like, does this really exist? is it actually a thing? And it is, because I know some other folks who do use it really fairly predominantly. So it's interesting that these things aren't really made visible to us, that other folks that are using out in the community.
I agree. I think even, personally did not have any idea. And then definitely just kind of revealing and talking with some other individuals about what I was doing. Definitely had interest in, you know, even my mother's talking about switching one of her, you know, annuities out. So she's even interested if you don't have to pay for multiple types of services and you can combine them into one, why not? Wouldn't you want to combine them into one and have that all in one area? So, you know, just knowing that these are, like Azure said, it is a thing and it is what allows individuals to keep their money and make their money work for them.
I think my story was going to be too long. So that means I have to have you back. Different conversation. And but the story really is about people exercising choice.
Mhm.
And exercising choice is one. And then having the knowledge is critical to be able to exercise choice. You can have all kinds of information, but if it
Yeah.
doesn't serve you, if it's not relevant to your achieving your goal, then you may not achieve your goal because you have insufficient information that's
Mm.
directly related. And then you need to have individuals who are about the business of you, your education. So when you see a product, you're not signing because, oh gosh, I just love Ethny. She's wonderful. I hope well, and that's good. You're open to Ethny, but you want to make certain that it's not just Azure. Who would not get what Azure has? And Elnora, she's kind of weird, but let's just take advantage of her. No, 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 no. We want you to know the product. We want you to understand it. We want you to be able to say, I got what was in my best interest, and I saw the different options. And not only did I get what's in my best interest, I'm so wedded, and I know how to review and track what's going on. I am literally leading my life. I am the CEO of my life, and that financial leadership is critical to that. And I am demonstrating that. That's what we want all of us to do. Not to spend countless hours that we don't believe we have. But let's be very clear when we decide on something, and if it's important enough, we make time. We move nonsense out the way and we focus, 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 right?
Yes.
And the brilliant way that these two professionals, these two women, have created a much more balanced life than I did when I was a mid career professional. So they're a model for me to find that what we call the wealth factors in our business among our team, thanks to the Pinnacle elite leadership. Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Sandra. And that is, and the rest of the team of leaders within World Financial Group. And that is faith, family, fitness, finance, and fun. To negate any one of those, you really are not wealthy folks. All of those are critical to cultivate in order to get to a place where we can say, if we want to say, we're truly wealthy. Anything you want to summarize, the two of you?
I think you captured it all. No, I think just thank everyone for tuning in, and we appreciate all the support, and hopefully we are a resource to you all. So please utilize us.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer in community and making knowledge accessible. So I feel like these kinds of venues of talking on Lead Live and other spaces is what helps us be able to just be able to help us navigate and be able to be informed.
And spread the wealth.
And spread the wealth.
In terms of knowledge, that is. Yeah. But also money in the end. But yes, knowledge is power, right? And so having that knowledge is the first step.
Yeah. And thank you for having us and everyone that's been tuning in.
It is my honor. And I'm sincere, as folks who know me very well, when it comes to having guests on the show who really demonstrate uh, a value for that wealth principles. Okay. Creating and sustaining faith, valuing family first, understanding at the core, if our health is not well, um, we might have all kinds of things, but if we're not healthy, too many of us understand the significance of that. And then, of course, having the resources, the wherewithal to build the life that we want. And hopefully, we're having fun along the way, always. Yeah. And I want to apologize to both of you for being more serious and not figuring out how to tell jokes so we can laugh a little bit here.
We got a few in.
We got to do it. Yeah.
It's always with money, folks get stress.
Well, Olive writes, great comments about really understanding and learning about your retirement options. Thank you, Olive. And thank you, Olive, for much more than what's obvious. This woman is fantastic, along with Tomoko and so many others, and Hawa just cares about what we do and do it in a way that demonstrates respect for people wherever they're at, and an unwavering commitment to be there, as in terms of education. And then I want to thank you, Becca. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time and for hearing. Hopefully, you not only walk away with the inspiration, that you walk away with tools to use, and you have a number to call. So that if you want to speak with all three of us, if you want to speak with one of us, we're available. And thank you, Olive. And how, yes, absolutely. Okay, well, want to say to you two, I am so excited about building this base and having the kind of impact that we have already visioned, and everything starts with the vision, and we begin to build the infrastructure. But more importantly, we're touching lives and we're affecting lives. And I am so honored to be in partnership with you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be in community with you.
Yes. Yes. We appreciate it.
Righto. Well, I look forward to seeing everyone at our next Lead Live next Wednesday, noon Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in the meantime, continue to grow, value you in relationship to, and just because you are you. And wish all the best for all your loved ones. Everything you do in partnership in your businesses, I wish you only the best as you add value to the rest of life itself. Much gratitude. Wada.